Hello, welcome to Lackluster Reactions. I am your Lackluster Actor, here today for my review of Season 4 of DanMachi. About a month after it ended. Has been a crazy busy this last month, but I'm here to take care of my final thoughts. And then make my final thoughts on the Owl House. That's going to be a beastly video. But either way, we're here for this video. So let's get started. First, what did I think of this season? I mean, overall it was decent. It's not a show I disliked, but time hasn't been as exciting as other shows that season. The first half was against Overlord Season 4, and the most recent season I started doing 2 episodes a week because I was not missing reacting to Farm Arc of Villain Saga. Also, let's not forget how I kept getting the videos for DanMachi blocked in some countries because of audio, which is not a point against the show, but a point in favor of my overall assessment that it was not the best show to react to. Now, that is not a sign that the show was bad. Meh-ish at some points, and some parts felt like they dragged on more than they should have, but overall I liked it. However, enjoying a show and me having a lot to say about it, or a reaction that, I would do while it's happening, that is a different kettle of fish. For example, let's look at Villain Saga. I'm not going to have as much to say in the average episode while it is happening, but I'm definitely going to have a field day examining the themes of the show. I mean, correlating Valhalla to Hell in order to show the tragedies of war. But for DanMachi, what do I talk about this week? It is a dungeon exploring, hail me fun. I feel I'm going to have less to talk about with this one than I was when I talked about my disappointment with Tribe 9. And as for reactions, come on. I have a stone face and subpar equipment. I'm not sure I get the views that I do on my reaction videos. I mean, there are times I do have some spikes, I guess, of emotion, but I'm the more quiet, contemplative, and introverted kind of guy. I do these because I want to, not because I am any good at them. And DanMachi, I do not think I had any moments where I had any of these spikes of reaction. So yeah, I could have probably watched a different show and had better videos, both the reactions and this one. That said, I had fun with the season, and it had more of the reasons I like this show are heroes slowly standing up facing possible odds. So overall a show I enjoyed, even if it was more subdued compared to shows like Higurashi and Spy X Family. So what is it I liked best about DanMachi, and liked best about the season? Well, as always, it's about watching all of Malia grow, slowly turning into the legendary heroes they are meant to be. So let's go through this by character. First, little Lili. It has been a while since previous seasons, so I had forgotten that despite diving deep into the dungeon with our boys, she was still first level. I mean, with the past experience you'd think she would have be at least level 2, but no, at this point she is still the weakest, there to support the team, no matter the challenge which is presented to it. But considering how strong everyone has gotten, it's probably not hard to imagine some discouragement about her circumstance. Which is why I enjoyed seeing her begin to learn her place in the team as a leader. The leader does not need to fight, but to ensure their people are doing the best in their fights, assessing their side's strengths against the opposition's, looking for weaknesses, rallying your troops to ensure there is no breakdown. How can they use the terrain, the weather, the time effectively? A good leader can do more to win a battle than the people actually holding their blades. We are given two big examples. First was the ambush when facing against the parasitic plant and his manipulation of the other monsters to weaken them. When they were separated from their belle, she was able to rally them to hold out against the swarm until the hero arrived. And then we had the boss fight against Amphisbaene, and they were initially outmatched. But after she was talking to believing in herself, she was the one who developed the strategy to bring the roof down on the creature, turning the table in favor of the party. With just these two battles against unfavorable odds, Lili has already developed the skills to turn the tides of battle, and I cannot wait to see how that improves when she actually does level up. And then we have Welf. Welf is the other member of the original three. Master blacksmith, crafter of some of the party's greatest weapons. He certainly has done much for the party, even as we have expanded to more forward members of the team. However, he has had handicaps which limit some of his viability. First, magical weapons only have a certain number of uses before they fall apart. Second, his greatest skills are as a blacksmith, even if he does have some abilities as a frontline fighter. And it's not like you can craft a sword in the middle of a dungeon, right? But this season we had a team with their back against the wall, all injured, without bell, and magic swords out of commission. Just Welf and a chunk of orichalcum, which he received through random plot convenience. They are without hope, with no sane options. So, what could Welf do? Of all the signs of growth scenes, I believe Welf's would have to be my favorite of this season, because there was nothing he could do, nothing anyone thought could be done in the situation. But he goes out on a limb and crafts a sword in the middle of the dungeon on a makeshift kiln with material too hard for him to form. And he succeeds because he was not making it for himself, but to protect his friends. As much as it's good seeing Belle grow, how proud I am for both his companions rising to the occasion and proving they are as good as the newer allies. It's great to see. But outside of our main two, we have had a look at some of our newer members, particularly Cassandra. Cassandra is your typical oracle, who is cursed to never be believed by the people around her. And you can tell that has crushed her confidence in herself. And it especially hurts when she received a new prophecy stating how she and all her friends are going to be killed coming soon, and she does everything she can to warn the people around her that it's coming, to try to dissuade them from trouble. But they march on, seemingly to the inevitable. However, destiny is not that cut and dry, and she is forced to come face to face with one of her main flaws early on in the boss fight. She is too focused on her despair, on the crushing future she has seen, to do her job as a healer now. However, when the team unites and she is called out for doing nothing, she decides to try to fight against the fate she believes is coming and pushes through. Maybe she was not the largest contributor to that fight, but every little bit helps when you start out outmatched. But then we have the moment of the destiny comes. After she has been through vicious battles with the team, after she has seen them all work together, after she has seen them never give up even when she had, and seen the closing lid on the casket, elects to convince the party to go down. It might not have been the most mighty of moments compared to Lili's and Welf's growth, but standing up for herself, not giving in to the despair that she sees in her visions. Is this instant that both brought her closer to Diana and also managed to have the party avoid the collapsing cave, saving the party's life. And also, on that note, shout out to her saving Belle's life. While it was more subtle, her worrying about the prophecy was what led Belle to have Welf turn part of his scarf into the arm-wrap shield. Not only was it useful in defending against various attacks which would likely have resulted in Belle getting his entire arm ripped off, but by the time they were in the White Palace, that arm was completely broken, and the only thing keeping it together and usable that entire time was that scarf shield. So doom and gloom do pay off sometimes. Then we have our main character, Belle. Going leaps and bounds is the entire point of the show. So no one should be surprised that there is a lot to talk about in terms of his growth. We have 2 big walls for Belle to overcome this time. But if any of you are keeping track, I'd say there's 5 big moments of Belle's growth that needs to be mentioned. So let's count them down. First off, while it culminates in a battle, we have the battle against Belle's own previous growth. While not as impressive as the others in how it moves one's heart, the visuals of it are still impressive. We have Belle being outsped by the birds, and him continuing to fight back until he starts matching their speed, and then going beyond. Increasing levels as fast as Belle has would likely have some consequences. And this was a good moment to both see what those consequences were, as well as getting our protagonist back up to speed. Second, we have the battle against the parasitic moths. While this is a kind of continuation of him growing stronger in the previous fight, it still has its highlight, which was him finally combining the Hestia knife with a firebolt together to make a fire sword. Doubly so since Hestia is the goddess of the hearth, with all kind and protective fires coming under her purview. To finally see her champion fully embrace the flames and use them to protect his friends, this officially being the moment Belle became the leader of the party, in both strength as well as hale protagonist magnetism. The next big wall was the White Palace in its entirety. The other floors came to test Belle's abilities, but here Belle was pushed to the edge. We got to see Belle pushed to despair, fought enemies clearly out of his league, collapsed from exhaustion, and he would have been dead 100 times over if he did not have Ryu to keep him stable early on. And from there, he pushed himself and grew, finding the way to first beat the sheep, and then overcome more and more powerful monsters, and in higher numbers. If Belle did not level up again from all of this, then I don't think the system is fair. Though the most heroic moment was, of course, Ryu trying to abandon him, to ensure that he is safe at the cost of her own life. She blew up one of the only bridges across, and turns to face the monster horde herself, only for Belle to run up, cross the bridge that I believe Ryu said led to a labyrinth, and jumped into the middle of danger, arms drawn. And then afterwards, despite Ryu trying to stop him, he kept attacking until the way forward for them was clear. Ever since the days of the Minotaur, it has always been good to see the moments that are just Belle standing up and being a real hero. And then we have the final fight, the fight against the Juggernaut. Yes, at the end of the day, it was more of Ryu's fight, her avenging her familiar and freeing herself from the past regrets. However, it was Belle who, when Ryu was lying to die, without even considering giving up, marched straight to the Juggernaut and faced it alone. with Belle not even realizing that this was the parts normal people would give up and let the lights fade away. He gives Ryu a reason to stand back up, and the two of them finish off the creature designed to be unkillable. I do not know what future hurdle stands in the way of Belle becoming a hero next time, but the Juggernaut is definitely going to be hard to top. And finally, more than Belle, we have Ryu. Ryu was the real star this season. This season when we started going into her backstory. Going by it step by step, Ryu has been with us from the beginning, being an overpowered ally who our heroes can call on whenever they need to slay a giant or fight against the familia of an egotistical deity. She was the one to be relied on when things were tough. And until this season, that's all she was. But she was once a greenhorn herself, working as a member of the Australia Familia, trying to figure out her own ideals, discover what her own justice was. Because of course, Australia is the inspiration of Lady Justice, so of course her Familia would be focused on the hunt for evil over other dungeon crawling pursuits. But either way, Ryu wished to discover for herself the meaning of justice. And in her search, in her conversations with her Familia members, we see her be given contradictory answers, all the while confusing our young Ryu about the true face of justice. But then her Familia dies, and worse still, dies helping to ensure she gets out alive. And in blind rage, she goes around killing all adventurers she can find who are connected to Evilists, especially the Rudra familia, who were the ones who were directly responsible. But all throughout, she loses her justice, not believing that someone who has murdered so many, and doing so through rage instead of duty, can be just. And so she walked away, only to be a freelance ally until she finds she missed one, until her nightmare comes back to haunt her. For most of this time, she has had no reason to live, having turned her back on her justice. Her only reason for fighting was, at first, because she had realized someone had escaped her revenge. But after that, with her target dead and her and Belle trapped in a nightmare, she did not have any reason except his survival. The moment she realized where they were, she was looking for a place to die, already losing everything when she lost her Familia. At this point, her only reason for not turning over and dying was that Belle could not get out of this alone. And so when the chance came, she helped Belle escape and faced her own death head-on. But Belle did not leave her behind. An instant so good, I am going to talk about a choice. We had Belle instantly return to save her. Her who had given up on justice and who just saw Belle as a kid who needed help, found something she always wanted to meet. A true, genuine, and just hero. She who has lived in the past for all this time finally had to stop time start again. And she became a member of the harem, but mostly she allowed herself to believe in justice once again. And it all accumulates in the final battle against the Juggernaut. While she lay dying, she was visited by her Familia one final time, telling her how proud of her, and telling her she had never walked away from her justice as she believed, but all this time had always done what she thought was right. With their encouragement, and with Belle by her side, she walked away from the light and back to the battlefield, where she did what she was unable to do the first time. What I loved seeing about Ryu's story was not only my own love of justice and how we were able to look at philosophy when looking back at the Australian Familia. we're able to see one of the strongest fighters we have seen so far, see her insecurities, see how she has grown jaded from her losses. And then when she's at her lowest, a hero saved her. Both literally, but also by showing her that justice does exist in the world. Showing that she is a good person who deserves to live and love, and that she can still follow the path of justice. May she never leave it again. And one more shout out before I call this a video. We have the most important character of the show, the dungeon itself. One of the things DanMachi does best is the environments with which they move through. In this season, we not only have a few great locations, but a great monster as well. First, we have the Grand Falls. Water levels are always a pain in games, aren't they? But many of them are spectacular to look at. And these floors proved an example of both. At once, we had both the majestic falls and endless rivers, but also in terms of our boss fight against Amphibianus, it proved a danger of having to fight an aquatic monster which can easily blast our family apart. It was a great boss fight, and I'm sad to see our main team not having that much to do together except mourn Belle's possible death after it. But either way, a place which would be great to hang out if you did not have to deal with all the monsters. But then we have our descent into the White Palace, and we get to see a taste of what the deepest floors are like. We get to see not only the most oppressive atmosphere, but also other monsters that are overpowered, and the feeling that of them being unable to find a place to rest and take shelter. Heck, even getting 5 minutes of sleep was something which was almost impossible and got them killed. Add in the corpses of others who have been trapped in this location, and specific places like the Colosseum. The adapting to a new floor at the beginning of the season felt like child's play. I mean, I believe all of us could sympathize with Belle's despair at this point, right? But even more interestingly, we have the safe area. This was an unexpected find, our two heroes having been always in the line of danger since the moment they first woke up. The place is characterized by a gentle flowing river and unique flowers. Like so much we find in the dungeon, the question which comes about is why? We know other floors have safe areas, but why? And why was this one hidden? Why is this flower-laden area in one of the most deadly parts of the dungeon? Are places like this an anomaly? Or is the dungeon keeping certain people safe? And finally, we cannot talk about the dungeon without talking about its greatest defense mechanism, the Juggernaut. The show did an excellent job showing the Juggernaut as a true threat, showing it cut through the other teams like butter, learning about how it killed the entire Australia Familia, and then almost having it kill Belle, set the creature up as a true threat even before reaching the White Palace. While I, as a fan of horror games, would have liked to have the creature pop up from time to time a la Pyramid Head throughout the season, but the true menace of this creature was on display any time it did show up. So far, the pinnacle of monsters, which the future will have a hard time beating. That is my overall assessment of Season 4. Again, it might not have been as hype as many of the other shows that I could have been watching, but sometimes I just enjoy watching a hero setting up to become a hero. Either way, now that is done, I have another review to research and lay out. See you guys then.